I attended 2 years ago. It feels like a very short time because I remember sitting here in the Big Ten room after walking through a ton of slush on a very lovely, cold and gray February morning. But it also feels like a very long time because of all I've learned in the past 2 years. Before I even started school at MSU, I spent some time exploring this green and white campus that we all call home. Even now, it's a little bit easy to get overwhelmed by these 556 buildings over 5,200 acres. Since I had my eyes on going to grad school for genetics research, people would always tell me that getting connected or getting published was important to making these huge schools smaller. I knew I wanted to get involved in doing some research, but honestly, I just didn't really know what. So I threw my apprehensions kind of out the window a little bit and started the entire process from scratch by cold emailing. After using a combination of MSU People Finder, faculty department websites, a little bit of Facebook, and of course Google, I must have sent out upwards of 20 emails to professors my rudimentary resume and statements of intent to work in the lab. Needless to say, my entry into research wasn't all that graceful. After some polite refusals and some nerve-wracking days of wondering and waiting and twiddling my thumbs, I finally got a positive response. Some weeks later, I found myself working in Dr. Christina Chan's lab in chemical engineering and molecular biology. In Dr. Chan's lab, our project focuses on how concentrations of saturated fat can affect the spread of liver cancer. The premise is pretty simple, but for me the lab was almost a completely different world. I was surrounded by pipette guns, unfamiliar machinery, like safety orange biohazard bags, and just things called autoclaves. I didn't know what was going on. And honestly, it was all very disoriented. And I was embarrassed by how much I didn't know. Sometimes people say, fake it till you make it. I definitely didn't heed that advice. I made it a point to not hunker down and stay quiet. Those first few weeks in the lab, I was probably a little bit more than obnoxious. I pestered my grad students and my PI about everything that I didn't know and every procedure that I didn't understand. So I learned all those acronyms and how to use that unfamiliar machinery. Eventually, when I put on my lab coat and I put on my gloves and I started working with the cells, I still made a lot of mistakes. But that's where I learned my first lesson from research. I found that as a student, you are allowed to slip up. People are willing to help students because that's the whole reason why you're here. You're here to be like a knowledge sponge. For me, as a genetics student, it's one thing to read about cells growing, but it's completely another one to watch the actual structure and form change under different treatment conditions. I started out small, just taking care of daily cell maintenance and mixing solutions. But watching cancer cells and collecting results like this confocal microscopy image, to take a step back and realize that I'm studying life in its purest form, it was really a great feeling. And it can even be really beautiful. Eventually, I was able to pioneer my own statistical procedure to efficiently analyze cell images that will hopefully be published later this year. The second lesson I've learned is to be opportunistic. When anything really interests you, you're going to want to share it. And when I learned the concepts behind the projects that I worked on, began just going through the motions of my experiments, I found many outlets at MSU to showcase them. It's one thing to collect data, but it's completely another to display it in a form where people will actually understand what you're talking about. I started small by presenting at weekly lab group meetings and stumbling over how to pronounce words like mesenchymal and desmoplakin. Don't ask me how to spell them because I wrote them down. This really helped when I decided to submit an abstract to URAB, MSU's annual undergraduate research forum. After organizing everything I knew into a huge poster probably taller than me, I had to explain my research interests, procedures, and significance to so many different people. This required me to understand all the aspects of my project. Some asked me questions that, admittedly, I couldn't understand fully, but some people were just curious when they didn't really know what was going on with my project. In addition, MSU has an office called the Office for National and International Fellowships, which works personally with students to help them find funding, scholarships, and other grants for undergraduate research and recognition. And they've been a huge supporter. This past semester, I was nominated for a national research scholarship called the Goldwater. The application included a novel research proposal, and I realized early on that writing and presenting ideas is completely different from the cookie-cutter introduction, body paragraph, conclusion kind of model that you follow in high school. And I regurgitated that so many times before. I learned it kind of the hard way. You know when you write an essay and you turn it in to somebody to edit, and you think it's pretty good and you're feeling pretty good about it, and then you get it back and the entire thing is just dripping with red ink. It was pretty humbling. In accepting that opportunity for final draft 10 revisions later to send to the National Board. I was so grateful to that MIFS staff and mentors who took time out of their schedules personally to support me. They really wanted to help me succeed, and all I really had to do was take the initiative and really engage with all the opportunities around me. As I brush shoulders with all these accomplished people in chemical engineering and cancer genetics every single day, it's easy to forget that they need inspiration once in a while too. I was initially worried that I wouldn't really be able to connect with my lab. I was a little bit shell-shocked. But in between talking about statistical analyses and writing grant proposals, we had made time for some lab gatherings and occasionally shooting the breeze once in a while, especially about football, considering our success this past season. People always tell you to think outside of the box. But I think expanding your horizons is a box you don't really realize until you get out of it. I got a little bit too comfortable with my lab. For me, it was experiences like undergraduate research that really extended my knowledge. Looking back now, getting involved in research was a no-brainer. I don't think of it so much as a line on my resume or just another credential, but rather as a really indispensable part of my college life. In the time I've been here, it's just given me such a wide range of lessons. At its very center, research is the pursuit of the unknown. You don't have to be majoring in a subject or even be part of the department. Like Bess mentioned a little bit earlier, and I'm sure the Honors College can tell you a lot more over the course of this weekend. Undergrads are involved in projects with social media market analysis, or studying the political historical implications of World War II, or maybe even writing grants to improve women's health in Turkey. These 556 buildings and 5,200 acres house some of the most diverse, talented, and inspiring people leading some amazing projects. MSU is blessed with supportive programs for undergraduates research and such an open and inviting environment to share them in. The last piece of advice I really want to leave you with this morning is that the world really needs thinkers and creators and questioners. I might be a little bit biased, but if you have the chance to do research and to engage a little bit more in something that you're interested in outside of the classroom, you should take it. All of you are here because you're curious and passionate about something. Let the people here challenge you, make mistakes, seek opportunities, and you may find yourself chasing new horizons. Thank you, everyone.
Well, good morning. I am Carl Edom, a professor of the